And back with you here on Community Watch and Comment. I'm Dave Rabin. This coming Sunday marks the 72nd anniversary of the U.S. atomic bombing of the Japanese city of Hiroshima. Kathleen Birkinshaw's mother, 12 years of age at the time, was living in Hiroshima on that fateful day. She survived and went on to live in the United States. Ms. Birkinshaw has written an historical fictional account of her mother's experience entitled The Last Cherry Blossom. Ms. Birkinshaw joins us now. Welcome to Community Watch and Comment.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Really appreciate you joining us. So your mother was 12 years old and living in Hiroshima when the U.S. dropped the first nuclear weapon ever dropped, I guess, is the accurate description. I think the test that was carried out did not involve a dropping of the bomb, but she somehow survived, but she lost her family. Tell us about that experience.
Yes. Well, she was 12 years old at the time, and she ended up losing her papa that day and her best friend, and then later members of her family started to pass away due to the results of radiation.
The radiation. But was it her particular location that protected her? How was that?
Well, it was quite interesting because she had always said she was further away from where the bomb was dropped, but we found out when we went to Hiroshima that she was actually 2 miles from the epicenter. And she was mostly protected from the initial flash and radiation when the building next to her and her friend crumbled on top of her when the bomb hit.
Wow.
So that probably saved her a lot from that first initial flash.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an extraordinary event.
It was very interesting too because she had a couple of coincidences. The first one was that her papa usually worked from home. He had a newspaper company in town, but that morning he went to work early so that he could purchase a train ticket for one of his journalists who had an injured son. And he had the means to be able to get the ticket for him. So that put him right in the center. My mom had been sick that weekend, so she stayed home from school that day. And all of her classmates were in the center of town because they were removing all of the wooden buildings because they were concerned that if a firebomb was dropped, like was dropped in March in Tokyo, that they didn't want to have as much damage.
Well, it wasn't a bomb. It was massive firebombing. I think more people died in the firebombing than in the dropping of the bombs, I believe. I mean, it's horrific.
Initially, yes. Yeah.
And we're talking about civilian deaths here. I mean,
yes.
Hiroshima was not a military target, if I understand correctly, nor Nagasaki.
Right. Not until the actual day of, due to the weather, what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, by being homesick, she avoided being in the center because all of her classmates ended up dying that day or within hours of the bomb being dropped.
And she met your father, an American. He was at a military base, Air Force base after the war. They met, and she ended up in the United States. Talk about that experience. It wasn't all rosy.
No. She had met him in 1959, and they married at the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo, and then they came to the United States, where his family was. And there was still a lot of prejudice at that time towards the Japanese. So she pretty much didn't want to tell anyone about what she had went through. She didn't want to draw attention to herself. So she ended up becoming a citizen of the United States, and she eventually worked on some circuit boards that were on Apollo 11. So it was kind of an interesting trajectory. But she never discussed it with me very much. I didn't even know that she was born in Hiroshima until I was about 9 years old. She always had these horrible nightmares every August, and she'd never tell me why. And that particular year, she finally told me that she wasn't exactly from Tokyo. She was from Hiroshima. But she asked me not to tell me.
And how old were you when she told? How old were you when she
told? I was
You were
9. She didn't tell me everything because it was too painful. But it was never spoken about again until my daughter had asked me when she came home. She was in 7th grade, and they were discussing World War II. And she came home to me and said, I'm very upset. They're talking about how some of the students can't wait to see that mushroom cloud picture. And she asked me if I would go in and talk about the people under that cloud, like her grandma. And that was how the journey started, when I started discussing my mother's experience, and that led to the book, The Last Cherry Blossom.
Wow, and there's a whole movement is there not, of children of the people that were affected by the bomb getting out there and being public about it?
Yes, because a lot of them, sadly, are passing away. My mom passed away in 2015, but she did know that the book was going to be published, and she was glad that the story could be out. She was amazed that anyone would really want to read it or to know. But I'm finding that the more that I meet with students, and they really enjoy reading about it because they also learn about the culture and about the people and the mindset, which gives you more of the emotional impact. And my mother really wanted the kids at this age, at about 12 years old, who were around the same age she was when the bomb was dropped, maybe they could relate to it better and walk away as future voters knowing that nuclear weapons should never be used again.
Mm-hmm. And your book is geared towards that group, correct?
Yes, it is. It's been read by high school and middle school and other ages, but it really is towards the 12-year-olds because that's when they start studying U.S. history about the war, and it gives them a better insight to it.
Oh, and they're able to take it in. I didn't know about the Holocaust in Europe until I was 12.
Exactly.
I just happened upon it. My parents didn't talk about it, and boom.
Yes, exactly. And it puts it more in context, and it gives you that emotional impact that you can't get from reading 2 paragraphs in a textbook and seeing a picture saying that, that's how the war ended. There's a lot more to it. And that's what I hope that my book can bring to the classroom. Well,
it's a wonderful undertaking you're doing and getting this book out there. I've been speaking with Kathleen Birkinshaw. She's the author of The Last Cherry Blossom, a historic fictional account of a young girl's life in Hiroshima at the end of World War II. Thank you for your work, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave.
Really appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That's going to do it for today's show.